there was a report on NBC yesterday that said that some Republicans were considering tax increases on the rich because in private meetings with Senate Republicans, they are trying to find ways to justify deep cuts to Medicaid, which is the health insurer for tens of millions of people, and half of the folks on Medicaid are well below the poverty line. But they also need to find a way to justify their increases in the military budget. Trump has proposed a $1 trillion Pentagon budget. The current budget is $892 billion. So that would be an enormous increase. And just to give people a sense, like 10 years ago in 2015, the Pentagon budget was $634 billion. It just increases rapidly every year. But I mean, I'm extremely skeptical of the idea that this would even happen. It's interesting that they're talking about it, though. Senator Mike Crapo, even though, gosh, you want to say Crapo every time, he's the chair of the Senate Finance Committee. He is telling the press that he's keeping the door open on essentially allowing the pre-Trump 2017 tax levels to come back because they're negotiating over extending the Trump tax cuts from 2017, which are set to sunset. And so
the idea is raising taxes here would mean letting them go up, but not as much as they would have anyway.
Right. Well, it's the top rate level lapses.
Right.
It's 37% now, and it would go back to 39.6% after this year. So they're open in theory to the idea of extending the Trump tax cuts for the rest of the rates, but allowing that top marginal rate to lapse. And
that's what's called raising taxes on the rich.
Right. But like, that's not, it's just not going to happen. Like Ted Cruz, Cornyn, Steve Scalise, who's very powerful in the House, are already like, no. I mean, the Republicans represent the rich, but they're in a bit of a bind because they have made gains with lower income people, and that is a failure of the Democrats. They have made gains with working Americans.
They lost under 100,000 earners for the first time in a while, which is,
since the
a big
50s,
problem.
Since the 50s, yeah. And so they're caught in between a bit of a rock and a hard place because they want to appeal to this new constituency that they didn't even really want, right? Like Trump just has this appeal to that cohort, and we have to do work to make sure that that's not the case. But Chuck Grassley, who's, 218 years old, he's on the Senate Finance Committee also, and he held a town hall in southeastern Iowa yesterday. Here's what one of his constituents said to him, and that's why they're at least giving lip service here, even though they're not going to raise taxes on the rich. The Republicans don't do that kind of thing. But like, how else can they justify and pay for those other cuts to programs like Medicaid and potentially Social Security that help everyday people? They need to find some way to also justify to whatever the powers that be, the parliamentarian, although I'm sure they'll dismiss them. How are you going to pay for this massive increase in the military budget when you are decreasing revenue in the form of tax cuts? But here's Chuck Grassley at this town hall being asked about taxing the rich by one of his constituents.
One thing I think that you could do without having to introduce a bill or do anything else is to stand up for the people in this country.
Yes.
We've all paid into our Social Security.
Yes. Yeah.
Our employers paid into it.
Yeah.
We paid into Medicare. Stop the use of the word entitlement.
Yeah. Yes.
That would be one step that if you just use the right language, this is not an entitlement. We're not getting this because we exist. We're getting it because of the faith we put in the country, the Treasury, every legislator, that we would pay into our Social Security. We would have it when we retired. We paid into Medicare. All of our employers and self-employed people paid double. They paid the employer part. So farmers, anybody who did this. So stop the use of the word entitlement because it's insulting to all of us.
Earned benefit.
Every single person elected to Congress should stop the use of that word and insist that it not be used.
It's an earned benefit.
And we apologize for the quality of this audio, folks. Just
Yeah.
we got what good.
Old to 59 has to prove that they're working, that they're worth the benefits they get, but we can't talk about taxing the ultra rich because we might be losing money on somebody that's getting food stamps in a town like this. Where are they going to work? How are they going to prove
You got to have jobs.
that they have a job or the transportation to go get their job? So
Childcare.
I think the general population is sick and tired of hearing about the tax cuts for the wealthy, the ultra wealthy, the uber rich, whatever you want to call them. When you start nitpicking about whether some single mom or single dad or somebody with somebody in prison is getting $70 too much food stamps, it doesn't even buy you anything at the grocery store.
If you're asking me if we're going to cut Social Security, no. And I wouldn't hope that you'd even worry about that when you have both Biden and Trump running the campaign that we're not going to cut Social Security.
I asked if you could stop using the word entitlement, admit that we paid into it, and just fund it fully. And do whatever taxing you have to do at the top.
Exactly.
And again, Grassley is old enough, and I think still sane enough. Cut back to Emma. That this lady, that he knows what this lady's referring to, which we all know. Raise the cap and make rich people pay their fair share into this program. Like the people know this stuff.
They know, and it's funny. Just play a little bit more of it because he does concede one point, but you're going to guess which point. People can probably already guess which of the ones he says, oh, I'll agree to that.
Asked if you could stop using the word entitlement, admit that we paid into it, and just fund it fully. And do whatever taxing you have to do at the top.
Yep.
Why should somebody reach $200,000, $250,000 a year and say, I don't have to pay Social Security taxes on that anymore, when I have to pay it for every dime I ever earned because I never earned over that amount. So fund Social Security.
Related, Senator?
Simple question.
Using it as a slush
She's
fund.
asking me to not use the word entitlement. That's a pretty good request from any constituent.
Thank you.
So she said raise the taxes on the rich, raise the cap of income that is taxed for Social Security, and Chuck Grassley said,
I don't think so.
loving this new soundboard, by the way. But yeah, as Matt says, he won't use the word entitlements anymore. He says,
I'll change my manners, but not the actual
Substance.
material policy. Yeah.
Yeah, and later in the show, we'll probably play that these same constituents were saying that this targeting of Kilmer Abrego Garcia is un-American, reaming him out on that very point as well. So it's there's broadly right now mass discontent with what the Trump administration is doing, even in places like Iowa. But it's all like back to the Social Security piece. If you're new to this topic and you haven't heard Sam's explanation on this front, every dollar over, I think it's $176,100, but maybe just round up just for the sake of argument and say every dollar over $177,000 in your income.
In other words, more than you make, or else congratulations.
Or yeah.
And join themajorityreport.com.
Right. Thank you. If you make over that amount, every dollar over that amount is not taxed for Social Security. So as the rich get richer and income and wealth inequality continues to worsen, that means that more of the wealth is concentrated over that Social Security cap, over the $177,000 income threshold. And that's not even taking into account all the money that's sloshing around in the stock market. And there's capital gains tax, but not enough on that front. That's putting that aside. when you hear about how Social Security is running out of money and that the trust fund is going to expire in a few years, which is the backup fund, that is true. Although if it expires and the backup fund goes away, you still get anywhere from 78 to 84% of what you paid into your entire life into Social Security. And that will never change because Social Security is self-funding via the payroll tax. And that's what she describes there. But we could expand Social Security benefits. We could make people's lives better, seniors' lives. It keeps 2/3 of our seniors out of poverty. We could make the benefits stronger if we were to tax the rich and eliminate the cap on Social Security income. And if we were to do that too, we could use that mechanism of the payroll tax and having that imposing that on wealthier people to possibly expand and use that as the template for, say, Medicare for all or other social benefits for society. It's crazy how much we just have basically decided that if you're in the top 10%, you benefit because you're not. Our tax system is unfortunately extremely regressive as opposed to progressive.
Social Security is literally a regressive tax where every dollar under the wage cap is taxed at a flat rate. Yep. And then every dollar above it isn't taxed at all.
Isn't taxed at all. Yeah. And it should be
just put it a flat tax like Ted Cruz wants everything else to be, and that would be an improvement over program. And that's how much it's been hamstrung by Republicans mainly to say despite that hamstringing, which we all see now, which is like it's not even a flat tax. It's literally like let the rich off tax. Even with that, it's been this sustainable. And if you got rid of that, this is what they're afraid of.
That's what they're afraid of. And so I don't think the Republicans are going to do Jack Diddley squat about raising taxes on the rich. But why is this even being reported in NBC? And why are you even hearing some rumblings in the negotiations on the Senate Finance Committee, or at least they feel the need to get that out to the public that that's what they're considering? It's because of town halls like this. It's because of actual democracy. And democracy isn't just, and this is where the Democrats, to bring it back to like, how can we be a real opposition party? This is where they fail. Is that democracy isn't just about showing up on voting day and the integrity of our elections. That's a big part of it. But democracy is also about democratic representation, which means that the interests of constituents are supposed to be represented by their members of Congress and their senators. And that includes economic democracy. That includes people's voices being heard just as much as the billionaire or the rich guy in their district. That we want our benefits. We want Social Security to be protected and strengthened. We want our interests represented. So it can't just be democracy when Democrats want to get reelected. We need to show people that democracy has value by creating equitable outcomes and using our government to create democratic outcomes for people's daily lives. It's not just talking about the economy. It's about talking about how democracy can make the economy work for you.
Hey, folks, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and check out our daily show. We do it every day at 12 p.m. Eastern for about 2.5 hours. We even take phone calls. You should check that out.